What is the cost of illegal immigration in American lives? Occupying Till He Comes at Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Welcome, friends. This is David Schnitker, your host for today's program. Thanks for joining us. Just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you would like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with Bible prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You will find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. I want to thank you for your prayers and support for this faith ministry. It is a great privilege to have Carol Rushton back on the program today to continue discussing her brand new Last Days Beacon article entitled Illegal Immigration, the Cost in American Lives. If you are not a subscriber to the Last Days Beacon or would like extra copies of this particular article, I will share how to do that at the end of today's program. Well, I've had the privilege of knowing and working with Carol for many years, both at a previous ministry as well as during the long 4.5-year history of Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Carol is an accomplished author and broadcaster and had the privilege of living in Jerusalem for 8 years while working at the Jerusalem Post. On the basis of her experience there and deep research on the subject, she recently authored a book. I just happen to have a copy on our table today. It's called Understanding Israel and the Middle East. It is subtitled Myths, Misconceptions, and the Truth About Israel and Her Neighbors. It was a real privilege for our ministry to publish this book. It is still available. And if you would like a copy of Understanding Israel and the Middle East, simply go to our bookstore on the website, www.swpm, and order a copy. And I'll bet I'll be able to encourage Carol. Stop. I'm sure I will be able to encourage Carol to sign a copy of your book as well. That's Understanding Israel and the Middle East. Well, a few months ago, I gave Carol the unusual assignment of becoming an expert on the vital subject of illegal immigration in America. She's writing a series of articles for our ministry on this subject for our monthly Last Days Beacon publication. She published her first edition in August on the cost of illegal immigration to the illegal aliens themselves. We discussed that in our last podcast. Her most recent edition deals with the cost of illegal immigration in the lives of American citizens, and we're going to be dealing with that subject on today's podcast. Well, Carol, welcome back to our program today.
Well, thank you so much, David. It's great to be back.
Well, it's good to have you. And of course, I have read your latest article. It is a great article. By the way, it's an 8-page article. And Carol has expressed her frustration that she wished she had more space because, you could write a book just about this one subject of the cost of illegal immigration to the lives of American citizens. And we hear over and over again in the news what that cost is. And so we want to at least present in a summarical fashion some information on this issue. Now, in part 1 of your series, you wrote about the price illegal aliens pay to get to and hopefully live in the United States. We're going to shift gears, and I think that forms a great foundation for today's program. And that is this: what is the price Americans pay for illegals living in this country?
Well, unfortunately, Americans pay a great price. I was not able to cover all the costs of illegal immigration to American citizens. Some of that I'll cover in my next article. But as far as actual lives, Americans are murdered all the time in this country by illegal aliens. And I really couldn't, at least I don't feel that I could really do justice to this entire subject because it's such a huge subject to cover in a brief article. But there are hundreds of Americans who have lost their lives in the last 20 years to illegal aliens. Not all illegal aliens come over here just to work. Some of them have criminal backgrounds in their own home countries. I point out the Daniel Horowitz, who works for Conservative Review, and that's a very conservative website, and they have broadcasts and everything. He published an article on immigration, and he says that our border agents and customs officials catch at least 2,000 illegal aliens every year crossing our border that have convictions for murder.
So maybe they fled their home country because of their convictions.
It's possible,
and
yes.
are coming to America to start a new life of crime.
Yes, and unfortunately, and some of these are just crimes of passion, which I point out. They don't necessarily have any intentions of technically murdering anybody when they come over, but that's sometimes what happens. And even if they don't have murder convictions, they have criminal backgrounds in their home countries. And so they're crossing, and these are just when we talk about 2,000, these are just the people that they've caught coming across our border. How many people that have criminal convictions in their home countries are crossing our border that we don't catch? So I think one of the most famous cases that I start with is Kate Steinle. She was in her early 30s, beautiful, gorgeous girl, had her whole life ahead of her. And this was a case, 5-6 years ago. And she was in San Francisco. San Francisco is a sanctuary city. They harbor illegals, and they think that it's okay to harbor illegals without turning them over to our immigration and customs officials. And they think that illegal aliens have a right to live in our country and do whatever they want. That's just fine. Well, she was walking on a pier in San Francisco, probably a normal activity to do on a beautiful day, on a weekend, or sometime in the evening with her father and a friend. And this illegal immigrant had already been arrested before. And in San Francisco, they let him go. They refused to turn him over to ICE. And he was in that same area. He found a gun, which had been stolen from a police officer. And he gave 3 different stories, which when you start changing up your story every time you give it, you know that there's something fishy going on. He said, he was unwrapping it. He found this gun under a bench. He unwrapped it and it accidentally went off. And supposedly the bullet ricocheted and hit Kate Steinle in the back. She died. She was begging for her father to help her. She got shot in the back, and she died in a hospital a couple hours after the shooting. Unfortunately, they could not save her life. And then he subsequently gave this illegal alien gave a couple of other stories. He was shooting at a seal or a whale or something that was out in the water. He stepped on it, and it accidentally went off. Anyway, unbelievably, when his case was brought to trial, they did not find him guilty of anything. Now, he actually had gunpowder residue on his hands. So what does that tell you? You don't get gunpowder on your hands by just stepping on a gun. I mean, you had to physically hold the gun and shoot it to have gunpowder residue on your hands. So unbelievably, the jury did not convict him of anything, not even of involuntary manslaughter. And the only thing that they could find to convict him on anything was he was a felon. And he had been supposedly in possession of a firearm, and that's a big no-no. Mm. Well, they couldn't even get him on that because his attorneys made the case that he would have had to have known that he was in possession of the gun. Now, I find that to be unbelievable. If you find a gun and you have it in your hands, well, of course you're in possession of the gun. Or a stick, or a baseball bat, or a piece of candy, or whatever. When you have something in your hands, or you have possession of it.
So do you think he got off easier because he was an illegal alien than an American citizen would have?
I think so. I mean, his attorneys really made a great case for the fact that, he was just this innocent guy who just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. He really didn't have anything to do with Kate Steinle's murder, which was just inconceivable for me, I think, or any logical, rational person to be able to buy.
So this illegal alien is still walking the streets?
Well, I think he's actually in custody. They've not been able to deport him, though. But I think he is in legal custody somewhere.
Enjoying 3 square meals and
Probably
a nice roof over his head.
Probably
at
so.
Taxpayer expense. Well, that makes me feel really good.
But they're still trying to deport him. I don't know if they'll ever be successful.
I think he'd been deported 5 times before.
Yes, he'd been deported before, and he had been in prison. So he because he was a felon. That's why they got him on the conviction. Trying to get him on the conviction of. He was a felon, but he was in possession of a firearm, and that's a big no-no in our country. You're supposed to be. So, it's to have somebody who's been convicted of crimes, they're deported, they come back in multiple times, and this beautiful, beautiful girl, her family's probably still grieving. They didn't give a whole lot of interviews after the trial, but I'm sure that from what I understand from her family, I think they were really sickened about this.
And of course, they have not received justice in this murder.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And I wish I could have. I did go on to highlight several other cases. Again, there was another girl, Molly Tibbetts. I think that also commanded nationwide prominence in our news outlets, and come to find out, she was again gorgeous girl, beautiful girl. She just looked like the all-American girl. She was studying at the University of Iowa, and her family lived in a small town in Iowa. She went out running for a jog one evening. She didn't come back home. And they picked up an illegal alien, and he admitted that it was his car that was following her. He admitted to the police that he got out. He was, I guess, wanting to date her or have some kind of a, thought she was beautiful, wanted to take her out. She said, and he admitted that she said that because he was following her, he actually stopped the car and was running alongside her, I guess, trying to make her interested in him. And she said, if you don't leave me alone, I'm going to call the police.
Wow.
And he actually led the police to her body. He killed her and buried her. He led the police to her body. Now he's pleading not guilty. So I don't know how that works.
Unbelievable.
But it really is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And again, she's just this beautiful, beautiful girl. All the people that are murdered by illegal aliens, these crimes are preventable. This is what our government is supposed to do. Its first and main responsibility is to protect us as citizens. That's the big job. And the fact that we have open borders that allows illegal aliens to come across. Now, again, American citizens, they kill people too. But these illegals shouldn't be in our country in the first place. Right. And if we had secure borders, they wouldn't be, and most of these people would still be alive.
Absolutely. Well, friends, we're going to take a brief time out now to hear from Jingo's, our sponsor for today's podcast. We are so excited to partner with a new commercial sponsor to help us with the costs of these products. Our new sponsor is Jingo's. Jingo's is an ultra stain remover and odor eliminator. It attacks stains and odors and is environmentally and user-friendly. We use this in our house, and take it from me, this stuff really works. Plus, by buying Jingo's, you not only help yourself, but also help us stay on the air. One satisfied customer writes, Jingo's works as a great odor eliminator. We arrived at our cottage and were greeted by a few mice and a distinct odor from under our refrigerator. The odor was from a dead mouse who had been there for a day or two. Upon removal of the mouse, we began spraying Jingos in the area to help eliminate the stench. Thankfully, Jingos worked as we hoped it would. Leslie from Chicago, Illinois. Thank you, Leslie. Please stay tuned for more details.
By Jingos, it's amazingly fresh and clean out here in beautiful New Zealand. G'day America, I'm Tarby, and I want to tell you about my new ultimate stain and odour remover, Jingos. My Jingos gunk gobblers will tackle stubborn organic stains and eliminate nasty stinking odours at the same time. Jingos effectively removes those little accidents like wine, coffee, dirt, blood, grass, even pet stains, and odours like fish, garlic, even skunk. Jingos is environmentally friendly, safe for use on fabrics, carpet, upholstery, and it works great as a laundry pre-soak on the worst pet or people accidents. Come on America, what are you waiting for? Just go online and order your Jingos for $12.95 and get a 4-ounce travel pack free. Crikey, pay $19.95 and I'll double your order. That's 2 large Jingos and 2 travel packs for just $19.95. Blasted seagulls, where's my Jingos?
We are back now with Carol Rushton as we continue to discuss the huge problem of illegal immigration in America and the cost to American citizens. Well, Carol, my next question has to do with angel families. What are angel families and why are they important to the immigration debate in our country?
Angel families are families of loved ones who have been murdered.
Like Kate and Molly, like we've just talked about.
Like Kate and Molly and others. And they, some politicians were saying, well, this is a manufactured crisis. President Trump is just making this crisis up at our borders. There's really no crisis. There's no problem with illegal aliens crossing our borders. We don't have a lot of this going on anyway. And the illegals here, they're hardworking. And it's okay for them to be in our country.
And they're honest, too.
And they're honest,
That's why they cross the borders illegally, because they're so honest.
Yes. And they're honest, and they're hardworking, they just want a better life. Well, the angel families, and they have a website set up that you can find, and I put the link in the article that you can go to. They're really outraged by all of this. Of course, their loved ones would still be alive had they not been murdered by an illegal alien who shouldn't have been here in the first place.
And let me just interject here. The I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said Democrats, but the Democrats have made a big issue about the separations that take place at our border, how parents are separated from their children and the children are put in cages, and that there's a separation that takes place. What about the permanent separation that has happened to these angel families?
Well, that's a great point, because at least these families that are separated at the border, they're still alive. And to be honest with you, they've entered the country illegally, and these cages are, for one thing, they're not these small little cages that they're crammed into. They have beds. They have access to food. They have sofas they can sit on.
It's like summer camp. I've seen pictures.
Yes.
It's very nice. They have soccer fields.
They have soccer fields for the kids and video games. And so it's not like they're in these small, tiny little cages that they're cooped up in. They're really treated very, very well. But these families are really outraged because their loved ones would still be alive had it not been for an illegal alien, wasn't supposed to be here in our country, murdering their loved one. And they don't have, they'll never be with their loved one again. Their loved one is gone, unless, of course, the family is Christian, and we know we have the hope of seeing them once again. But these families have to live with the loss of their loved ones for the rest of their lives. And a lot of these are parents who have lost their children. Most of the time, the kids are pretty young, teenagers, early young adults, and it's horrible that you as a parent have to bury your child anyway. I mean, we know things like this happen because, you know, you have cancer, you have other diseases, you have things that happen in life, and sometimes those happen. Something like this is preventable, and they're very outraged. I quote a couple of them in the article. This is not, to them, this is not a manufactured crisis. This is real because it's happened to them. And, you know, they point out as well, these politicians, they live in gated communities and they have very nice lives and they're protected and their kids are protected. What if this happened to them and their children or their grandchildren? How would they feel? So I think a lot of these families have gotten lost in the immigration debate, and I felt that we needed to at least touch on them and point out to them that they're hurting. They have really paid a high price for our policy of open borders.
And as you pointed out earlier, the government has failed them. The fact that they are missing loved ones for the rest of their lives and will grieve for the rest of their lives, it is basically because the United States government has failed to protect them as American citizens from illegals from other countries.
Absolutely.
It is a scandal against the government of the United States that these things have happened and continue to happen today.
And I really feel that our president is right, because oftentimes he will have parents from these angel families who have lost daughters and sons at his rallies, at his speeches from the White House and Congress. And I think it's important that we need to remember that there is a cost. It's not just on the illegal immigration sites. We pay a real cost too, and a lot of families have paid a very high price.
The ultimate cost.
The ultimate price with their lives.
Yes. Well, let's talk about OTMs. What are OTMs, and are they a threat to our country?
Well, most people probably never heard of OTMs. OTM means other than Mexicans. Now, we do have a great deal of Hispanics and Latinos coming across our border, but we also have people from Africa, people from Asia, people from the Middle East, people who are affiliated with terrorist groups coming into our country. And you can say, well, we don't really catch them very often. Well, I provide proof that we have a steady stream coming across our borders every year. And these people are affiliated with terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. Some of them have come into the country with terrorist plots. They've come in here intentionally wanting to commit terrorist acts. Now, so far, we've not had any that have been successful. But how many are we not catching? That is the problem, and that is the question. We have.
And how many do we want? How many terrorist events do we want?
We don't want any. We don't want any terrorists coming. And believe me, it only takes one or two to pull off a successful terrorist attack to kill hundreds of people. Do we really want that to be happening in our country? I mean, you look at what has occurred in Europe. There have been a lot of terrorist attacks in Europe that have occurred because of this. They've had an open border policy, basically allowing anybody into their country the countries that they wanted. This is not good. It's really the policy that we've had under presidents, past presidents. It's been inhumane to both the illegal aliens themselves and to American citizens. And we certainly do not want terrorists coming in our border. And I do provide documentation in the article, and and very good sources about some of the terrorists who have made it across our borders and that they have caught. But we need to really have secure borders so that we do not have to worry about terrorists coming into our country illegally. We have enough of that problem. Just, a lot of the immigrants, some of the immigrants who come to our country, they come in illegally on legal visas and they just overstay their visa. So that's how some of them get in. But we certainly don't need to just have a wide open border and welcome anybody and everybody into our country. I mean, it's like if you have a home, you lock it up. You have a door. People knock at the door if they want to come into your home, and it's up to you to allow them to come in your home. You don't just not have a door or leave it wide open for anybody and everybody to traipse through your house and eat your food and use your home and dirty it up, and you don't have a home.
So without borders, you have no home. You have no family.
Yeah, you have no home, you have no family, you have no country. And our president has been very right. Says you don't have a country if you don't have borders.
I think of what Michael Savage, famous conservative radio host, says. He says there are three things that are essential for a country. He says you have to have secure borders, you have to have a common culture, and you have to have a common language, and that's English, by the way. And he says if you don't have those three features, you do not have a nation.
No.
So we're talking today about secure borders, one of the threefold pillars of a nation is secure borders.
Right.
That's a starting point. If we don't have secure borders, we're not going to have a common culture, and we're not going to have a common language. And we know, of course, how multiculturalism is working over in Europe, don't we?
Yeah, not working out very well, is it?
Not very well at all, and it certainly is not going to be working in the United States. And we're beginning to see the terrible fruit of that. Well, we're out of time for today, Carol. This has been a great discussion. I appreciate your bringing research and insights to this mammoth problem of illegal immigration in our country. And I believe that our brave president is beginning to turn the tide.
I hope so.
We certainly should be praying for and supporting our president as he seeks to secure our borders and protect the citizens of the United States from criminals, whether they are foreign or domestic.
Yes, yes.
And so this has been a great discussion. Friends, we are offering this excellent article to accompany this series of interviews. It is our November Last Days Beacon article by Carol. It is entitled Illegal Immigration, The Cost in American Lives. You may order 5 copies of this article for your donation of $5 or 25 copies for a $15 contribution. Just go to our website, www.swpm.us, and go to our bookstore. Type in the title, Illegal Immigration, The Cost in American Lives. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Well, friends, thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time for our next Last Days Beacon podcast. Until then, this is your host, David Schnitker. Thanks for listening.